What does it say about your championship window when you're desperately hoping that a player who's forgotten how to score can somehow remember how to win? The Boston Celtics are about to make one of the most bewildering decisions in recent franchise history, and it's a move that perfectly encapsulates both the desperation and delusion that can cloud championship thinking. According to the latest betting odds, Boston has emerged as the favorite to sign Ben Simmons, a former three-time All-Star who's become the NBA's most expensive cautionary tale about wasted potential. This isn't just another free agent signing. This is the Celtics, a franchise built on championship pedigree and no-nonsense basketball philosophy, essentially admitting that their depth chart has become so thin that they're willing to bet their season on a player who averaged 5 points per game last season. 5 points. That's not a typo. That's the offensive output of a player who was once considered a cornerstone piece for championship contention. The irony is almost too perfect to believe. Here's a team that just traded away Drew Holiday, a proven winner and elite two-way player, and now they're scrambling to replace that production with someone who's spent the last few years becoming synonymous with playoff disappearances and offensive limitations. It's like selling a Ferrari and replacing it with a bicycle, except the bicycle costs more and breaks down every time you need it most. What makes this situation even more fascinating is that the Celtics aren't just hoping Simmons can contribute. They're betting their entire championship window on the possibility that he can somehow rediscover the player he used to be. It's a gamble of epic proportions disguised as a depth signing. The spectacular fall from grace. Let's take a moment to truly appreciate the magnitude of Ben Simmons' decline, because his current situation would be tragic if it weren't so self-inflicted. We're talking about a player who earned 3 All-Star selections, made 2 All-Defensive First Teams, and 1 Rookie of the Year in 2018. This isn't some journeyman who never lived up to modest expectations. This is a former cornerstone player who had the basketball world at his fingertips. In Philadelphia, Simmons was averaging 15.9 points, 8.1 rebounds, and 7.7 assists per game during his peak years. He was a triple-double threat every night, a defensive menace who could guard multiple positions, and a playmaker who made everyone around him better. The 76ers built their entire identity around his unique skill set, and for a while it looked like they had found their franchise player for the next decade. Fast forward to last season, and Simmons is putting up 5.0 points for 0.7 rebounds and 5.6 assists across 51 games with the Nets and Clippers. Those numbers aren't just disappointing, they're historically bad for a player with his pedigree and salary expectations. It's like watching a sports car that can only reach 25 miles per hour because the driver is too afraid to press the gas pedal. The most damning statistic isn't even the box score, it's the fact that Simmons averaged just 0.8 points per game in 5 playoff appearances last season. When the games mattered most, he literally disappeared, becoming less effective than most G League players would be in similar situations. The injury excuse and mental health reality, the standard narrative around Simmons' decline focuses heavily on injuries and mental health struggles. And while these factors shouldn't be dismissed, they don't fully explain the complete erosion of his basketball fundamentals. Yes, he's dealt with back problems and other physical issues, but his shooting phobia and passive play existed long before his injury concerns became prominent. The mental health aspect is more complex and deserves serious consideration. The pressure and criticism that followed Simmons throughout his Philadelphia tenure clearly affected his confidence and on-court decision-making. However, mental health struggles don't typically cause elite athletes to completely abandon their competitive instincts, which is essentially what we've witnessed with Simmons. What's most concerning is that Simmons' decline isn't just about confidence, it's about fundamental basketball skills that seem to have atrophied through lack of use. His unwillingness to attempt shots, even in favorable situations, suggests a level of basketball fear that goes beyond typical confidence issues. The Celtics are essentially betting that their organizational culture and system can address both the physical and mental aspects of Simmons' struggles. It's a noble gamble, but it's also one that numerous other organizations have failed to make successfully. The Boston Gamble, System versus player. The Celtics' interest in Simmons reveals both their desperation and their confidence in their ability to maximize flawed talent. Boston has historically been successful at getting the most out of players who've struggled elsewhere, and their championship culture might provide the structure that Simmons needs to rediscover his effectiveness. From a system perspective, the fit isn't entirely illogical. The Celtics need playmaking and defensive versatility, two areas where Simmons has historically excelled. His ability to guard multiple positions would give Boston lineup flexibility, while his court vision could help address some of their ball movement concerns. However, the offensive integration presents massive challenges. The Celtics system relies heavily on spacing and shooting threats, two areas where Simmons has become a liability rather than an asset. His reluctance to shoot essentially turns every possession into a 4-on-5 situation when he doesn't have the ball, dramatically limiting the team's offensive options. The most optimistic scenario involves Simmons accepting a purely complementary role where he focuses on playmaking, defense, and transition opportunities while completely abandoning any pretense of being a primary scorer. This would require a level of ego suppression that Simmons hasn't demonstrated throughout his career. The competition and market reality, the betting odds showing Boston as the favorite to sign Simmons, reveal both their desperation and the limited market for his services. The fact that the Suns, Knicks, and Kings are also mentioned as suitors suggests that several teams believe they can unlock whatever potential remains in Simmons, but none of them are offering the kind of money or role that would represent a clear preference. This lukewarm market interest should be concerning for Celtics fans. If Simmons were truly an impact player waiting to be unlocked, there would be more aggressive pursuit from championship contenders. Instead, we're seeing the kind of cautious interest typically reserved for reclamation projects and salary cap casualties. The Celtics' emergence as the betting favorite likely reflects their organizational reputation rather than any special connection with Simmons. Boston has a track record of maximizing talent and creating accountability, which might appeal to a player who's struggled with consistency and motivation. The financial and roster implications, the financial aspects of this potential signing, add another layer of complexity to the evaluation. Boston can likely only offer the veteran minimum, which means they'd be getting Simmons at a significant discount compared to his previous earnings. From a pure cost-benefit analysis, this makes the risk more palatable. However, roster construction presents more challenging questions. The Celtics recently waived J.D. Davison to get under the second apron, suggesting they're making salary cap moves to accommodate additional signings. Using that flexibility on Simmons rather than more proven depth options represents a significant philosophical commitment. The opportunity cost is particularly concerning. There are other veteran guards available who might not have Simmons' theoretical ceiling, but who also don't carry his extensive baggage and question marks. Choosing Simmons over these alternatives suggests the Celtics believe the upside justifies the risk. The championship window pressure, what makes this potential signing so fascinating, is how it reflects the Celtics' current championship timeline. They're clearly in a win-now mode, which makes taking a flyer on a reclamation project seem counterintuitive. Championship teams typically prioritize reliability and proven production over upside and potential. However, the Celtics' recent roster moves suggest they're operating with limited options and financial constraints. In this context, signing Simmons might represent the best available option rather than an ideal choice. Sometimes championship teams are forced to make calculated risks because safer alternatives aren't financially feasible. The pressure aspect could work in both directions. Either the championship environment motivates Simmons to rediscover his elite form, or the pressure exposes his limitations more clearly. Given his track record in high-stakes situations, the latter scenario seems more likely. The historical context this potential signing fits into a broader pattern of championship teams taking risks on talented but flawed players. Sometimes these gambles pay off spectacularly, creating the depth and versatility that championship runs require. More often, they represent expensive mistakes that limit roster flexibility. The key difference is that successful reclamation projects typically involve players whose decline is clearly attributable to external factors like injuries or system mismatches. Simmons's issues appear more fundamental, involving basic basketball instincts and competitive drive that can't be easily coached or schemed around. The verdict on desperation, the Celtics' pursuit of Ben Simmons, represents everything that's both admirable and concerning about championship-level ambition. Their willingness to take risks and believe in their ability to maximize talent shows the kind of organizational confidence that championship teams possess. However, the specific choice to target Simmons suggests a level of desperation that might cloud judgment. When championship teams start hoping that fundamentally broken players can somehow rediscover their peak form, it often indicates deeper roster construction problems that can't be solved through wishful thinking. The next few weeks will reveal whether this gamble represents shrewd championship building or the kind of panic move that derails promising seasons before they begin. This Ben Simmons situation has me absolutely baffled because I can see both the logic and the lunacy involved in this potential signing. What's your take? Do you think the Celtics can actually resurrect Simmons' career, or are they just setting themselves up for another expensive disappointment? Is this the kind of calculated risk that championship teams need to take, or should they be looking for more reliable depth options? Jump into the comments with your thoughts on whether this represents genius or desperation, and hit that like button if you're as conflicted about this potential signing as I am.